Should we go this way around the table?
Move on.
Sure, you can go.
Okay, so this was kind of a last
love
minute
movie
topic, just like mine always are.
Kind of. You wait until we get here. Like, what should my topic be, guys?
I know. Well, I don't know.
And then we come up with a topic for you.
Many times we do.
This one I kind of came up with on my own. Well, it's because I watched something and it was like, okay, we could talk about this. So, something I never thought of. Everyone's like, oh yeah, time travel. You know. Excuse me. But one thing I never thought of is because of how the Earth is moving in the universe. Like, you know, because we're rotating around the sun, and then we're rotating, like our solar system's moving in the Milky Way around this black hole. So it's like, we would need to figure out teleportation as well. Do you think that would ever be something that could ever be figured out? Would be teleportation to the exact moment where you're not going to be, because of how fast we're moving, like even 100 miles off of Earth's surface. Because, I mean, we're moving fast, you know? Is that going to be anything that we could ever figure out? Because you're a smart guy. If anyone's going to know, like, if it's even
I
within the realm of possibility.
Disagree that I'm quite that smart, but...
I think it depends heavily on if you're a static or dynamic, you know, machine. Like, in theory, is your machine outside the realms of the gravitational pull of Earth?
Because you do have to realize time is relative to the gravitational pull that it is being affected by. So the greater the gravitational force, the slower time actually flows.
Is it time in this exact spot on Earth?
Well,
or is it time
that
in this exact spot in the universe, like.
I don't know, how would time travel work? Like that's the whole thing. It's like
you would generally, if I build a machine, okay, you know, theoretically, I'm gonna make it so once it you know transports me to whatever time I choose, it will only do that, allowing if I'm not gonna die immediately, like
by being 100 million miles away from
like
Earth, right?
In dark space, you know, or something. So I would think part of the science. Theoretical science of it would be to, you know, put you where you're thinking, not like in the realms of the universe, you know, like you would be on Earth still.
Yeah, because I was always thinking, I always have the argument in my head, like, well, maybe someday it could be possible, you know, for time travel. Like maybe someday it could be, right? But then, well, here's the thing. But then I'd think to myself, it's not possible. And it never will be, because if it was, we would know about it by now. Because someone would have screwed up, you know, like 200 million years in the future, would come back, be like, I want to see what year zero is like.
What if we are the screw up?
Yeah.
Yeah, what if we are the screw up timeline?
Well, we would still, because someone would have to go back and screw it up.
No, you just get the TVA and they just put a reset charge.
It's just the timeline.
You just get a reset charge. Fixed timeline.
So I could be cool somewhere else?
No,
not anymore. That's a different branch of the timeline.
That was something that would have happened if not for the flub up.
Oh, so because of that. I was saying, because that brings in like the whole multiverse thing too. You know, where it's like there could be a million of you. Do you think that's a thing?
It's cool to think about.
It's cool to think about, but here's what I'm going to tell you. So
I just want to pick his brain on this.
Everything in the universe is actually what we call time is actually the procession of cause and events. Okay.
Yes.
In every event, there was a cause that made the event happen.
Effect.
Right. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Here?
Yeah.
Cause and effect. That's how it's always been, and that's actually what we call time. Is the sequence of cause and effect. Would you guys agree with that? For the most part.
Yeah.
So, in order to do this, you actually have to undo the causes and the effects, and go backward. And undo them bit by bit, like trying to untangle a cord, but one that's already molded and formed. And that's how do you do that? Do you get what I'm saying? How exactly do you go back and undo what is done?
Just ask Tony Stark.
Wormholes.
Wormholes, but how does that actually undo what has been done?
You don't question the wormhole.
Like, even when they have tried to research black holes, they still look at the gravitational force and they see, oh, it slows down the rate of time, but it never reverses it.
That's a laughable concept, trying to research black holes.
I know.
I love when scientists do that stupid crap.
I
you know
agree.
A dang thing. But whatever.
We do know that with more powerful gravitational forces, time seems to pass normally, but outside, time is passing at a much...
From a view, it will be so much slower.
Okay. So now leading into kind of like the third thing here, and this is what I was going to get to. I just got to tell you, what's a more realistic possibility? That time travel will ever be a thing, or that there are other realities that we're able to jump between at some point?
How would you jump to a different
I don't
reality?
know. I have no
without-
idea.
Changing the timeline.
Yeah.
So...
Because like if it's a timeline, you know, and there's one here, there's one going this way, being able to jump across the other
However,
one.
if there isn't
What?
an alternative...
What's more...
Can I
If
tell you
you
what's
had
the
to
most
say
realistic
one...
of all the things you've mentioned?
Yes,
it'd
that's
be
what-
teleportation.
Okay.
And not time.
There you go, yeah. I agree with that.
Travel. Teleportation is the most realistic of those, or the most attainable in my opinion. I would say time travel or dimensional shifting,
Yeah,
not so much.
I agree. What's your definition of like feasible teleportation? Is that just moving so fast, or is it like
Beam me up, Scotty.
breaking something down to a molecular level and then like passing through some sort of whatever machine this is?
I would say...
Like in Willy Wonka.
Yes.
Moving chocolate from one...
No, but yes.
Oh.
Well, I would say...
Thought I was onto
I
something.
don't know that this part is necessarily attainable. I would say that, kind of like what you
Just by
described, is
theory,
probably one of
crap.
the most realistic. But what I would consider proper teleportation is the ability to go from point A and point B instantaneously, no matter what distance it is.
Sure.
The concept of speed is probably more likely, as we could be more
That's
likely to
what I'm
actually
saying,
send molecular levels of particles
Yep.
across some type of transport tube and get them there at an incredibly high rate. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And getting them there is the more likely action. Now, you're not going to do this with organic matter and expect it to come out alive, of course. But
Which is why you teleport chocolate.
That's how it worked in
Willy
the
Wonka.
movie, yeah.
It worked. I mean, just like Rick and Morty are able to go from one dimension to another, so clearly it has to work, right?
No.
Are you sure?
No.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
It only works with Pickle Rick and he's not real.
so
That was the
that's
funniest thing I've ever seen.
that's my
I don't
thought.
watch
on it.
I don't watch Rick and Morty, so
I
I
have
just know the
nothing with
memes.
this. I can't wrap my head around it.
See, I can't
That
either.
much.
That's
it's fun
why I
in
bring it
movies.
up.
Yeah, it is.
That's all you really need to worry about.
Like it's
It-
a
yeah.
fun concept to think about. I'm not smart enough
But-
to do it.
No one
But
is.
it's one of those things where it's
Wants
like
to be done.
it's
Especially,
fun just
like-
to pick brains of other people that are smarter and just hear their opinion. That's why I brought it up because I want to hear what Weston has to say about this.
So I don't know. I actually prefer to think about the like you say, traveling between dimensions. I prefer to think about other dimensions of the dimension we're in, because you're always thinking of like width, depth, height. You've also got time as being a fourth dimension. Do you realize that there are theoretically, I think, 16 or 32 different dimensions, something like that, that we just can't even perceive?
How many of them have this room at a normal temperature?
Things
right now?
outside of your perception. That is
Exactly.
a good talking
You
point.
see, I don't get some of that stuff. Like, how do they even reach?
You can't.
You can't.
Because it's outside of your perception. You can't perceive. And even if you could somehow find a way to perceive that thing that is outside of your perception, is that its normal state, or did it change because you perceived it?
Great question.
Yeah,
Great question.
I always like to think about that for no apparent reason whatsoever.
Theoretics, gotta love them.
Yeah, because there's a lot of different ways we could go down on like with this conversation here, but it's like with the thought of time travel, and then it got into the teleportation thing. So I'm like, well, that makes perfect sense, So if you did have a time machine, like let's say they figured that out, they would have to make it then to where it's like relative to the machine within a certain area. So like how would they do that then? Like, hey, I want to go here at this point. But it'd be like teleportation then as well. But you'd have to say, okay, now it's going to go, 1,500 miles to the northeast to that exact spot, right? Like, that's the only other way I can think of to do it.
Well, I would say that if you are going to have that kind of time travel, you would need some type of positional reassignment as well to ensure that you get to where you need to be.
So teleportation.
Some level of teleportation, yes. So
It'd be
I'm
a part of the
thinking-
machine, just generally. I
So-
would figure.
So what we're
if someone
saying-
found the science for that, they'd find the science for that as well.
Yeah.
So what we're saying is you need a TARDIS.
But you're not the doctor.
Okay, Doctor Who.
Now here's a question though. Okay, so if you someone created a time machine, whatever, and changed and went to a different time, which physically makes a new reality, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Theoretically, the moment that somebody does
Yeah.
time travel, it creates a schism.
So that old branch of reality, the original, is gone then, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you just destroyed an entire universe of time that makes you the greatest villain ever by just going to a different time. So let's hope no one does that because we're all dead. We cease to exist.
Well, we would be alive just on another timeline.
Maybe.
Theoretically, assuming
We
they didn't
would
change
we would
something.
be
Or
in
if
the
that-
TVA.
Butterfly
what it would
effect
be.
would take in as well.
Right, you know? I mean,
And that's what you're like. If you just like step on an ant, it could cause a. Is that what you're
Yeah, that's
talking?
what
about?
That's
saying,
what
the
the
butterfly
theory
effect,
is,
yeah.
Like yeah, okay. Like you step
What
on
was
an
Go
ant
back to the
10,000
prehistoric
years
times,
ago, and it yeah.
step on a butterfly, come back, you screw up the planet.
What if I can make
What
it?
was that movie called?
The butterfly effect.
Was-
That's what it was
oh,
called.
was-
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
But
it
that's
was.
good shit.
I
It's actually a
I remember
pretty
the-
decent
it's
movie.
Pretty decent movie.
It's
Yeah.
a pretty decent movie.
Now that we're
Check it
talking-
out.
Oh, we're
'Cause
talking
they-
about movies, yeah.
because
Full
they
circle.
He's from
step
Iowa.
on the, yeah, they step on the butterfly,
Mhm.
come back because they didn't like get the organic removal thing on when they come back from the timeline when they shoot that
Or
dinosaur.
I don't know if that's the exact same movie, but his movie is about that too. He changes things. He has that ability or whatever, and it progressively gets much, much worse every single time he changes something.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I think there's an episode of Family Guy where they go back and prevent 9/11, but then like everything just falls apart. If I remember right.
I don't know.
That's the
I haven't watched
concept.
Family
Yeah,
Guy,
like
but-
you just change one small thing. In that case, it was huge though. But like you change
Sure.
one thing and everything falls apart. I wonder though. It does make you wonder because it's like at the same time, you know. Let's say because I know you said that's our timeline that would be deleted or whatever. But if someone were to go back, 100 years, and
If
kill-
that's how it
like,
works.
yeah, like let's say that's how it worked or whatever. Let's say 1,000 years from now, someone's like, okay, we're gonna go back to the 1930s and we're gonna take out Hitler. Like, that probably would have happened, right? So that should tell you right there, time travel could never be a thing, or they haven't figured it out ever, or they never will,
Well-
because no one's gone back and
Or is
stopped
there a
all these
strong
things.
rule saying that they can't do that?
That's also true.
I mean, you would
There's-
screw up everything.
It's true.
See,
regardless.
well,
Of
if
you
just
stop
just
and
your
think about
presence
it.
there.
Yeah, if you take out Hitler, you got to think, okay, World War II never happened, unless Italy did something, but we could snuff them out really
I
quick.
would be willing to say almost Japan would probably still do something.
or Russia.
However,
I'd say
that
Russia.
doesn't mean that we would have had the same effect in
Yeah.
Europe, and so
Yeah.
the European economy may never have bounced back, or at least not as quickly. And, that could
And
have caused,
also the United
There's
States too,
unending
because
variables.
we were coming out of depression
Yeah.
when the war
Never-ending
happened.
variables that could change.
So that helped
So
a lot. The propel.
why
so
the-
there's so many things that
Yeah.
would just be.
That's why
throwing into
theoretically
chaos.
it's like the most dangerous thing you can do. You know.
Mhm.
Well, yeah,
You're
that's why I'm
screwing
like,
everything
that's
up.
in my mind, it would never happen because something would have been drastically changed at this point. And like, I feel like we would have heard about a time traveler,
Or
Oh,
our original.
There's a theory we can get into. There are people out there that say they have come back in time, and it's hilarious. I think we should dive into this sometime.
That,
That's a conversation
that actually,
we
okay.
should have one of these days.
yeah,
PK's
Next
got to be
time.
here for that one.
Oh yeah, like maybe next week we could talk about
Maybe
that. That could be your
we'll see.
topic.
But
You'll
we'll
do
remember.
some,
I'll do some research. We'll see.
yeah,
well, I think
we could react to different like predictions. Or someone's like, yeah, they said this is gonna happen.
the Mayan calendar.
Some are just ridiculous. Some are like, that's actually feasible.
There's
I don't
another
think it's real,
theory we
but,
could
you
talk
know.
about in another topic as well. Is the pyramid theory, like about the pyramids.
Which one? There's a
Well,
lot of those.
like how they were built by aliens, because there's ones in there that's like perfectly centered with the land masses on Earth, and there's also the ones in
It's called slave
that
labor.
are that are
It is
perfectly
called slavery.
like
Hundreds
per-
of pounds,
perfectly aligned.
Hundreds of thousands of slaves. That's what it's done.
Well, no, there's a lot of stuff we can. I'll bring it up sometime. We can talk about.
You know,
it 'cause
there's
it'd
this.
be interesting.
Sorry, we're just getting to weird stuff, but some guy like recreated Stonehenge by himself in his backyard by just using a plank of wood, like using leverage and like leveraging. He like moved his whole house one time, so
With one board.
like a couple different like strengthened boards of like a pivot kind of. It was weird. I watched it. But
you should find it and send it to me.
It's crazy. I'll have to try to find it. I think it was on
All
the
right.
History Channel. But
I think we're like
Yeah.
we're way
Sorry.
We're
off
way
course
off.
now.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we
Went down a big
Subway
rabbit trail.
was there.
yeah, so I mean that's normal, but that's
Especially
just
on
what I
yours.
wanted to talk about. I don't know. It seemed
Okay.
like it'd be interesting to pick your brain on it, and then just kind of bring up a few little points on it like that. So.